Ben Shapiro is a lot of fun for me to listen to because every now and then he says something where I'm like, I can't believe he just said that out loud. It sounds like one of the things he would say behind closed doors at a cocktail party with other wealthy Republicans. But then he just says it on his show, and you're like, there's no way he just said the thing that, oh, he said it. Oh, he said it. So here he is. He's going to do his classic, I mean, this is old school, 1980s, 1990s style conservatism. Like, bro, we spend way too much money. We got to pinch our pennies, bro. We got to run the government like it's a household budget and, like, reduce the deficit and reduce the debt and do stuff like it's necessary, bro. It's so necessary. Now, look, I can go into a long spiel here about how, according to Keynesian economics, but even more importantly now, modern monetary theory, MMT as it's called, that's actually not the case. Sometimes deficit spending is a good thing. And oftentimes, public deficits lead to private surpluses. So the more the government gets in debt, the more the private marketplace thrives. But we don't need to get all academic and get into the weeds of economics here. Suffice to say, he's doing the old school, like, we need to balance the budget stuff, which is hilarious, especially because Ben Shapiro and all of his, fellow Republican commentators and politicians all supported Trump's gigantic 2017 tax cut for the wealthy, which added over $1 trillion to the deficit. So it's very selective when they care about the deficit and when they don't. When it's like spending on endless war and tax cuts for the wealthy and subsidies for Wall Street and big corporations, all of a sudden their concern about pinching pennies is out the window. Anyway, so here he is talking about the deficit, and he makes an incredible admission.
Prediction right now, mark it down, February 16th, 2023, we'll have much bigger problems in our future. Everyone will keep kicking the can down the road on this thing. Newly enacted legislation in the past 9 months alone adds about $1.5 trillion to cumulative deficits over the next decade, according to the Budget Office. More than half of that increase comes from a single law, an expansion of health care benefits for military veterans who were exposed to toxic burn pits. That passed overwhelmingly in both the House and the Senate. Now, again, this effectively presumes that literally any American service member stationed in a combat zone for 32 years could have been exposed to a burn pit. Which, I'm sorry, it sounds great and it's a bad law. That isn't... I also would like to have recompense for people who are exposed to toxic burn pits. That is not every member of the military for the last 32 years. Apparently, Joe Biden continues to claim that he is being fiscally responsible. Prediction right now.
So what Ben is referring to here is a bill which is now a law called the PACT Act. And you guys might remember because a few months back we covered it. And what happened was it came up for a vote. Now, again, the bill is to fund health care for U.S. veterans who were exposed to toxic burn pits and got very sick as a result of it. And what happened is Republicans voted it down. They voted it down. And thank God for Jon Stewart, because Jon Stewart saw this. This is one of his pet causes, in the same way that looking after the 9/11 first responders who had all these health issues, that was his cause too. And he went everywhere in the media. He went everywhere. He did interviews. He did, his own videos on his own show, and he ripped them a new one and was like, are you kidding me? Republicans won't even vote for health care for U.S. veterans who were exposed to toxic burn pits. I mean, this stuff was standard operating procedure for the military. You just burn everything in this giant burn pit, but turns out when you burn stuff that you shouldn't really be burning and you shouldn't be inhaling it, it's toxic and people get really, 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 really sick. So he went on the warpath, and he hammered them, and he hammered them. And then, as a direct result of Jon Stewart hammering the Republicans on this, all of a sudden, mainstream media started to pick up the story. It started to, hey, why did the Republicans vote down healthcare for U.S. veterans who were exposed to toxic burn? Are you insane? And it was MSNBC, and it was CNN, and it was Fox News, and everybody picked it up. The exact same thing happened, by the way, when Jon Stewart did this with the 9/11 first responders. They were, people were dying from inhaling that toxic dust from when the buildings came down on 9/11. People would breathe that in, and they had these long-term health problems, emphysema, cancer. People had breathing machines. And Jon Stewart took them to D.C. and was like, I just want you to know who you guys are screwing if you don't give funding to them for their health care. These are people who had been denied for stuff. They didn't have the money. It was terrible. It was so terrible. But Jon Stewart got on the case, and then the media covered it, and then eventually it ended up passing. Now, that stupid law, it had sunsetting provisions, so he had to go back and fight again for it later on. It's just terrible. It shows how terrible Washington, D.C. is, right? Well, the same thing happened here with this law. After Jon Stewart's public shaming campaign, calling out every single Republican who voted against it, they had their Weasley. Ted Cruz was like, the reason I voted against it is because there was a funding provision that wasn't marked down for the fiscal year 2023, and the me. Just coming up with every excuse in the book, every dumb nonsense excuse in the book, and then he shamed them into finally passing it. And then it became law. Okay? Even Fox News was like, wow, you guys voted down health care for U.S. veterans who are toxic burn pit victims? Ben Shapiro manages to find an issue. Now, I haven't seen a poll on this, but my guess is it's got to be 20% or less of the country agrees with him. Of everything he could talk about in the country, of every issue in the world he could talk about on his giant political show, he is bitching and moaning and whining about deficit spending and the debt and saying, this is a bad law when you gave healthcare to toxic burn pit victims. I don't know, bro. Seems kind of expensive. Why should we do that? Seriously, let me ask you guys. If you're making a list of the things in the government that we can and should cut, where does healthcare for U.S. veterans who were poisoned by toxic burn pits, where does that rank? I mean, that's like, honestly, that is probably like top 10 things you'd want to protect. You'd want to protect the spending for that, wouldn't you? Now, he makes it seem like, bro, the veterans are living on their high horse, and there's this big loophole where some people are getting funding for their health care, and they weren't even exposed to toxic burn pits. Okay, and www.don'tgiveashit, that's actually awesome.net. We're going .net, not .com today. .net. Why would I would spending tax dollars on healthcare for U.S. veterans? I want to spend whatever it takes, whatever it costs. I mean, how can anybody disagree with that? I mean, I go further. You guys know that. When it comes to funding healthcare for everybody, it should be single payer. It should be tax funded, free at the point of service like every other developed country. But no, Ben is not only not for healthcare for everybody, he's even mad that it's too expensive to give healthcare to U.S. veterans exposed to toxic burn pits. What a slimy little weasel boy. Oh my God. Could you imagine? How many people watching his show are U.S. veterans, by the way? And this is your boy right here? This is your guy? Telling you your healthcare is too expensive for us to pay for? Amazing. At the same time, mind you, the Pentagon can't account for 59% of its money. It failed 5 audits in a row. So when it comes to the war spending, endless war everywhere all the time, 900 military bases, he doesn't say a goddamn word about cutting that because he doesn't want to cut that. He's fine with funding all the wars on the front end and blank check for that. But healthcare on the back end for our veterans? I don't know. This is kind of expensive. God damn it, Ben. Oh, what a loathsome son of a bitch. Holy shit. And then I guarantee you, if he were to see this, he would, act like I'm strawmanning him or something. Dude, I could play it again. You clearly said it's a bad law. It's a bad law to give health care to U.S. veterans who are victims of toxic burn pits. And even if I'm being super kind to you and I'm steel-manning your case, your argument is, hey, not all those people were exposed to toxic burn pits. So what? They don't deserve health care? They don't deserve health care. So soldiers who were not exposed to toxic burn pits don't deserve health care. Okay, well, there's a lot of them who deal with PTSD and severe anxiety and depression and other health issues, like they got their leg fucking blown off or whatever it might be. Nope. It's not what he wants to spend money on. Ben would much rather do another tax cut for a billionaire or another giant bailout to Wall Street or pay for another endless war. You know, that's what he's on board with. Oh, man. This is one of those issues that was, so super settled that everybody's like, obviously, who would be against this? Well, now we know. Now we know. It's truly unbelievable. It truly is. And then, by the way, if somebody like me comes out here and says, hey, maybe we shouldn't give Israel billions of dollars in subsidies every single year for them to continue their apartheid state and for them to continue to bomb innocent Palestinians. If I were to come out here and say, maybe we should cut that spending, he would call me an anti-Semite. But, okay, I guess you're anti-veteran, anti-troop. I guess you hate the military, right? I guess you hate our brave young men and women who put their bodies on the line and their lives on the line for us. Because clearly you don't want them to have health care. That's very obvious. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.